So I thought, whoa, up in the middle of nowhere, I'm in this movie. It was pretty cool, but pretty dull. I thought, all this time, I wanted to be a big star. It was one of the most boring things I ever did.
That was Elaine Kuracina, live on stage at the Howell Grand Slam at Pickens Hall in Heuvelton. On today's episode, Hollywood is not all it's cracked up to be. From NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing, this is The Howl. True stories, no notes, told live on stage in the North Country. I'm Ethan Shanty. Movies have always been this magical thing for me, and I don't mean that I'm blinded by the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, although I do partake in celebrity gossip now and then. I mean the process of making them has always seemed magical and otherworldly to me. You start with the story, sure, that might be the easy part, but then you get the actors, you get the director, then you've got stuff like gaffers, the boom operators, the makeup artists. There are just like so many moving pieces involved that it's a miracle that anything ever gets made at all, and it's a miracle too that any of them are even good. I always thought it would be cool to make a movie, but the whole process just seemed kind of like insurmountable to me, so I never really tried. But then my friend Vinny reached out. He was at film school in LA, and he called me up to say, hey, I've got a good idea for a short film, and I think you'd be a perfect fit. He didn't mean that I should get my crooked teeth up on the big screen, but that I would be a good script editor. And after that, I found myself with a producer title, whatever that means, and then I was the on-set production sound mixer, and I had a pretty good idea of how I could do that. The set for our short film was an uninsulated hunting cabin in the middle of the woods in Willsboro, New York. Now, summertime, that's no problem. But this is November that we're talking about, when daytime highs were in the 30s, and at night we're lucky if we're in the teens. And that's important to know because in order to light a fire on a film set and keep your uninsulated cabin warm, you have to have a safety inspector. And because we didn't have one of those, we had to settle for little space heaters. But we could only run them for a little while because while we were filming, the sound of those heaters would interfere with the ambiance of the movie. So I stuffed hand warmers in my boots, in my pockets, and in my gloves. And then to make matters worse, I discovered that my feet had gotten wet during our first outdoor shoot of the day. And that meant that I was going to have wet feet all day long. From 9 in the morning until midnight, we ran around the woods getting our shots, doing edits to the script on the fly, take after take after take, and I was freezing cold. When we wrapped, we finally sought shelter in a heated truck, and I said, that's it, I'm done, no more movies for me. As long as I never have to stand out in the cold all day again, I'm fine never making it big in Hollywood. I mean, what can I say? I'm an indoor guy. When you're behind the camera, you don't really know how a movie's going to turn out. Even though we had edited our script, written shot lists, and done everything in our power to make it a professional short film, we could only really get the footage that we could get with a skeleton crew. But a few months later, I saw the finished product, and it was pretty damn good. Sure, it was a grueling day in the woods, there was a lot of time in the editing bay, but we did it. Our budget was literally $0, and somehow we did it. We made a movie, me and my friends. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I keep learning that all you've got to do is try, and you might end up with something that doesn't completely suck. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to make another movie, but at least I can say that I did it. Elaine Kuracina got to do it too, but her story has a few more twists and turns that landed her back in the North Country. Back in 2016, she took the stage waving a pink feather boa to tell us about her brush with fame. Here's Elaine Kuracina live on stage at the Howell Grand Slam at Pickens Hall in Heuvelton.
When I was in college, I wanted to be Barbra Streisand and Meryl Streep, and I wanted to have a brownstone in New York, and I was going to be the biggest star ever. Well, I auditioned, and I have calluses on my feet to this day from all the walking I did, and all the producers I tried to see, and all the agents I tried to see, and all the agents I tried to stay away from. I remember there are several times when an agent would say, well, if you take off your clothes, I'll give you a part in a movie. And I thought, what, me? So obviously I didn't get any parts in any movies. So I would go to auditions and so many times, and I would meet people who were going to the same auditions for 10, 11, 12 years. And they would be doing temp work. Not that there's anything wrong with temp work, but I kind of didn't want to do temp work. I wanted to be a star. So I thought, I made a choice. 10 years from now, I don't want to be doing these auditions anymore. part of me wanted to be a doctor, too. I mean, a 20-year-old's crazy head, right? My sister said to me, we were walking down Broadway and 103rd Street, why don't you think about becoming a dentist? Because maybe you'll have more time and you can still pursue your music. So I thought, whoa, that might work. So I did all the preliminaries, got into dental school, graduated, and moved back to Binghamton, New York, my hometown. Got into a practice, but I still wanted that brownstone in New York. I still had my resume and pictures and sending them out as many times as I could. I met my husband, of course, and I had my best production, my son. I never knew I could love anything as much as I could love my son. I got involved with a theater company at Broome Community College. Angelo Zuccolo was our director. He was a one-man show. He invited community people and students to work together. I was so fortunate to be a part of that company. We did 3 or 4 productions a year. I got to do children's shows. We had a little person named Jean, and we worked with Whitey, who was an albino person, and we did children's theaters all over the Southern Tier. We even went to the Little People's Conference in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and performed. Then one time, Leonard Melfi came to the Little Theater. Leonard Melfi was a very prominent off-Broadway playwright and a friend of Angelo's, and I was really delighted to meet this man. He was very well known in New York circles. He wrote a play for all of us to do, and he wrote a character for me, Zatalia Stellabella. It was about an Italian family in the Binghamton area. And I must say, Angelo had quite a knack for casting people. He would often cast me as the prostitute. And I thought, nobody would ever really cast me as the prostitute, but he did, and it was fun. He would also, I remember this one actor who just mumbled all the time. And Angelo said, okay, David, I want you just to mumble all of your lines. Don't even try to say your lines, just mumble. And he did, and he was the most unforgettable character. One thing about Angelo is that he always brought the best out in everyone, and I've really tried to take that with me wherever I go. Well, my husband lost his job at IBM because they closed IBM. So we kind of struggled in Binghamton because we really wanted to stay because of my job. But then he got an opportunity to come to SUNY Potsdam and be a professor. We decided this is the choice we're going to do, and we're going to do that. So we moved to Potsdam. And I must tell you, I was a person always looking into New York City, always wanted a brownstone. I never knew there was anything above the Adirondacks. We got here, and it was a lovely community, and we rode around Cornwall, and I stopped at a rummage sale, and these 2 ladies said they were talent agents. And so, of course, I told them about my resume, and they called me a few weeks later because Salem Witch Trials was being done in Upper Canada Village. Would I audition? So I said, sure. So I got to audition and got a part as an extra, a villager in Salem. And this was with Kirstie Alley and Peter Ustinov and Alan Bates. And I thought, and Shirley MacLaine. So I thought, whoa, up in the middle of nowhere, I'm in this movie. It was pretty cool, but pretty dull. I thought, all we did all day was sit around until we could get called onto the set. I was so bored. I would pick up garbage. I just had to do something. And the staff would say, you can't do that. That's a union job. I thought, oh. So it was interesting to know that after all this time, I wanted to be a big star. It was one of the most boring things I ever did. Then I got a call a few weeks later to go to New York to be an extra in Sex and the City. And I thought, should I go? I thought, don't miss this opportunity. So I went down to New York, and I got to be on the set of Sex and the City. It was being done at the Brooklyn Art Museum. And it was all day, 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock at night, just sitting around mostly. And finally, when the episode was aired, it was about 10 minutes of airtime, but I made sure I could see myself, and I certainly was in the background. So I thought, I love being in the North Country, and I thought, how could these things be happening in this little part of the world? It was pretty exciting, and I got involved with the Grass River Players, and I got to sing and act and write and do all these things that I've always loved to do. And I got to practice my dentistry, and I enjoy helping people. So I thought, wow, this is wonderful. I'm so grateful for all the good opportunities. And once in a while, I'll go back to New York City, and I'll go see a Broadway play, and I'll say, what if I chose that life? Was that a missed opportunity? And I say to myself, I may have missed the stars, but I definitely got the moon. And may I take my final bow?
That was Elaine Kuracina, live on stage at the Howell Grand Slam at Pickens Hall in Heuvelton. You know, I'm realizing that dreams are a funny thing, and I think it takes a small taste to really know if you're missing out, or, if you dodged a bullet. I've had a little taste of all of my dreams. Like I said, I got to help make a movie, I published a few books, I toured with my band. All of those things were dreams that I'd held since I was a kid, and I've gotten to do them all. I'm lucky in that way, also maybe a little stubborn. But when it comes down to it, what I've realized is that the most important thing is to be with my friends, my family, my community, doing the best we can. That's the real dream. And everything else is extra. That's it for this episode of the Howl Podcast. Make sure you follow the show so you don't miss an episode of this season, and hear all of our episodes and find out when we're going to be telling stories on stage in your town by visiting ncpr.org/howl. The Howl is a co-production of NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing. The show is written, edited, produced, and hosted by me, I'm Ethan Shanty, with editorial supervision by news director David Summerstein. Doyle Dean is our production manager, Bill Hanel is our director of digital services, and Caitlin Kelly is our social media specialist. Our theme music on this episode is by famous letter writer of Plattsburgh. Don't forget you can support this podcast and everything we do at NCPR by making a contribution at ncpr.org/give. And thanks. For NCPR, I'm Ethan Shanty. This is North Country Public Radio.